Welcome to Booked All Night, your super smart and stellar guide on this exploratory voyage into expansive literary worlds. I'm your host, Jessica Mary, and I'm joined weekly by Leigh and Magdalyn Ann as we geek out over great books and the craft of writing them. We're a small corner of the internet and every little bit helps, so be sure to rate us, leave a comment, participate in the polls after each episode, and of course, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Alright, my little Libernauts, buckle up and settle in, and let's launch into chapters 11 through 20 of Remember Me Tomorrow by Farah Heron. Alright, so a whole bunch of stuff happened, which is part of the reason I didn't want to go a week without talking about it, because 1, we have 9 chapters left, and 2, it left off on such a cliffhanger moment. I was like, oh my god, Katie can't make me wait a whole week to go into the rest of I'll kill her. I will just...
I'm just gonna say I'm very angry that we're doing this in segments, because for this book, I just want to keep reading on. And I was just like, maybe I can read one more chapter and Jess won't know, but then I knew I would probably wind up finishing the whole book.
I had that same thought. I was like, maybe I can go just one. It'll be fine. Just one more chapter. And I turned the page and it's the morning when Jay disappears. I'm like, son of a... All right, fine. So I can't go on. It's cool. And so much happens, right? I made a list because I always, go over my notes and stuff when we're going through. And so in these 10 chapters, Eliza begins questioning if they're actually on the same timeline or universe. Mm-hmm. Jay switches his relationship preferences because he's like, well, I'm going to die. I feel like this is the time to readjust my sights on those particular preferences. Then Eliza has a huge glow up for Jack's party. All of Jack's creepiness. Jay's stuff washes ashore. We start talking about motive. We meet Jay's extended family. We discuss the ethics of journalism and find out that Jay's mom is gone. The scholarship is apparently super sketchy. And we leave off on the morning of the day Jay disappears.
After his friend Jack says something even more cryptic and it starts connecting.
Yes, he's got so much. I quoted his cryptic stuff. That's one of my many quotes for tonight because he has such weird stuff, right? Well, I think the weirdest drunken moment thing was he was always drawn to unexpected bursts of light. He'd dance with the water lily and make it bloom. He didn't come from the swamp. He could see right through the murk. The swamp flowed through his veins too, Wanderlust shouldn't hurt anyone. It's a gift. And I was like, are you, what are you on, sir? When that all got uttered at this party. And at the end of this 10 chapters, we have answers for most of that crypticness, right? The water lily is Eliza, because he says, I'll let him know that the water lily lives in his room now. The swamp is all the rich friends, himself included, which I don't think was really that cryptic. He was he calls them the swamp a couple times in that scene.
The rich kids, yes.
Yeah, Wanderlust turns out to be the name of Jack's ship, and the bursts of light is really the only thing that's not, outright explained. And I'm starting to wonder if... I think Jack might actually just be a red herring at the end of the day, because there's more stuff toward the end that we find out. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're meant to focus on Jack more than these other little background things. So there is the Tanner, right? Toward the end of chapter 20, she finds out that Jack's mother's maiden name is Tanner. And she's like, why do I know that name? And we know that name because the architect who built East House, along with a few other mansions in Toronto, is Ernest Tanner. And we also know that another guy that went missing in East House was also related to Tanner.
Yes, because the architect was a playboy, just like Jack.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people who resented him because of money and the fact that he was running around with all these different women. And I believe he's the one who goes missing.
Jay went missing.
Well, yeah, but there was...
Or do you think Jack was supposed to be the one who should have been missing?
No, I'm talking about the architect. There was another connection.
Oh, yeah.
Between him and Jay, other than being playboy and rich. I think there was, he was murdered or he went missing or something happened to him.
There was he went missing. So the architect goes missing, the guy that's related to the architect goes missing, and then Jay goes missing.
Okay, I didn't know there was, for some reason, I guess I didn't think it was a different character. I didn't know there was a third one who went missing.
Yeah, the middle guy is like the playboy that she kind of compares him to, because everybody, especially on the other podcasts and all the girls around campus, are like, he just dated everybody and, you know, he never settled down. And you have, what's her name, Emma, I think, and she comes around, she's like, oh my god, he like he slept with me and then ghosted me. And it's like, no, I heard this was the other way around, and you just kind of
I guess what I'm trying to say is I think I merged the architect and the playboy who went missing together. I thought they were the same character.
No, they are different characters.
Okay. Yeah. My reading skills and comprehending skills aren't as good as they used to be.
You know what? It doesn't help that, like, I'm getting so into this book, and we do the 10 chapter bursts a week, because if we read forward, then we're like, but then this happens. Oh wait, that's not in that 10 chapter cluster that we want to talk about. And I finish on like Monday, right? Like Thursday nights is our recording time, and we're done. I'm like, cool, I'm going to go start reading the other ones. And like Monday comes around and I have read through those chapters, and then I got to wait to talk about it. And I have awful memory issues. So when we come to talk about, like, I have to go back over this because I'm not going to remember everything that I want to talk about. And there is, like, this clump had so much to talk about. And I feel like there's a lot of themes really coming out of this section too. Like in the first section, like, you know, it's kind of obvious, like friendship and love's kind of there and whatever. But in this section, I felt like that, like, free will versus fate argument was coming up. Like, it's got some real Oedipal vibes, not in the sense that Jay might be sleeping with his mother, because that's just not a thing that's happening. But I mean more in the sense that, like, when Oedipus finds out he's going to kill his father and sleep with his mother, he leaves because he's like, I'm going to prevent this. And so he goes. And I feel like that might be happening with Jay, right? He finds out he's going to go missing this day. And I think the things that they are doing are ultimately going to come around and kind of bite them in the... And it's going
That's
to be...
what I said last time.
I think this section really locks down that theory that... excuse me. That everything that is going on between them is what ultimately leads him to go missing. And
I think it's also could be like the fixed points in time. So so it could be that, or it could be like no matter what he finds out or does to prevent it, something's going to lead him or happen that same day that's going to make him disappear. Yes. So even though he's avoiding camp, like let's say he doesn't even go to campus that day, because we see him on the video recordings. We see him enter the building and go up to his room. And then he disappears. So let's say in this timeline, he's like, well, now that Eliza told me all this, I'm not even going to be at campus. But something else happens that makes him disappear.
Yep.
And because that's that fixed point. Like nothing he does to prevent it is going to prevent it.
On that note, like my other thing with it, right, because we have this time skip, which is ultimately kind of time travel-y, although she's not going back to change things. But I want to be like, if you were successful, Jay would be here, and he's not. So I don't think, like, I don't feel like you're going to be successful. I think you are talking to a dead man. And there were they brought that up too, because his jacket and his wallet and his phone washed up on the shore, and their immediate reaction was like, oh no, Jay's dead. But Jay's reaction was like, I've been taking screenshots of our conversations, and if the cops get my phone working, then they're just going to go and look at all of these conversations that we had, and they're going to come knocking on your door, which is another thing that has not happened to Eliza.
Right. And there is something that he says about all that I also didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And not because I was confused or it didn't make sense, but it didn't make sense. It wasn't logical. He said, if I was, and this is a trigger warning, he said, if I was going to commit suicide, don't you think I would take off my jacket and everything because I'm a really good swimmer?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, the point of committing suicide is not to swim to keep yourself alive. So no, I don't think, I mean, you could take off your jacket and your shoes and all this stuff, but if you just had that fleeting thought to throw yourself into the water and with like heavy shit on, so you can't swim,
Yeah.
I think, so I don't think he's dead. I still don't, because no body equals no death. And the
No
fact
body, no
that,
crime.
right, and the fact that he's a good swimmer, and the fact that, you know, he's just like, man, I wouldn't have, you know, done all that. Like, I don't know. It was just something that did not make sense, you know?
Yeah, that was a weird line. Like, one, the admission that, like, I have no desire to kill myself, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the line about, like, I'm a really good swimmer, one, you know, I think he's trying to say, like, somebody wouldn't have been able to murder me by just throwing me in the water.
Right.
And so something else had to have happened. And then this is a way to kind of get rid of that evidence, not that I died in the water. And he's just kind of trying to put things together because he's like, why? How could I have died in the water unless you, like, dropped me in the middle of the ocean and I didn't have the strength to swim back?
Right.
Or, like, there's something more nefarious that happened preventing him from being able to swim back. At which point, you know, if you're thinking that somebody murdered him and then threw his body into the river or whatever it is, why would they take off his coat?
Yes.
Like, even if they, like, tied him up and put him in, they're not going to be like, hold on, let me get your coat off and then toss him into the water. That's just a weird extra step.
Right. But I do think that maybe to make it look like a murder or make it look like something, or to get rid of the evidence, maybe they did throw in the jacket and with, like, the phone and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea what happened. I'm still confused. I'm still trying to piece that together. But I don't think he's dead.
I feel like we're gonna find out in these last 9 chapters that, like, he was on the boat with Jack and he put his coat on the railing and it fell, and that's why his stuff washed up on shore. Like, it's going to be something so simple and ultimately pure, you know. It's not going to be this nefarious thing, and we're going to be like, all right.
He's just out on the boat with his mom, avoiding everyone and everything until everything blows over.
Yeah, that's another thing, that is, his mom is gone, right? She goes to,
I knew it. Mm-hmm.
meet his extended family. I'm looking for my notes on this, right? Yeah, she goes to go meet his extended family, and, like, no one will talk to her. Not the uncle, not the aunt, definitely not the cousin. The cousin's like, get away from me. You disgust me. How dare you come into this? Which I do want to talk about this one quote that came up before. There's a couple quotes that I want to talk about, but the cousin really kind of ties into those. And so she goes to the cafe. She learns that Jay was there the day that he disappeared, and also that his mother has all of her mail sent to this cafe because she's concerned that his uncle is going to read her mail. All of the mail is post-dated after Jay went missing. And then we also learn that Salma's not there. And there is a line... it's Salma Auntie spent her whole life trying to escape her past, and it still came and took him. People like us, we can't ever win here. They own it all. They will never let us forget that. And there's that in conjunction with what Jack says, that, you know, the swamp is in his veins too.
Yes.
And there's a mystery in these 10 chapters about who Jay's father is. And so I think it's pretty obvious at this point that Jay's father is going to be one of the rich guys, especially when you get to the creepiness of the what is it, the Bright Knowles Award, which is a word
Yes.
of mouth scholarship with no website or application.
No information whatsoever.
At
You can't
all.
even, like, I mean, I think she found only a couple people who even got the award just because they put it in their LinkedIn bio, but you can't even see who won it before, like, anywhere else.
Yeah.
Unless you really dig deep.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're reading these types of books and they're mysteries, everything pops into your head. It's like everyone's suspicious. You're putting together random theories that even you don't believe, but you're just going to believe it so you can say you're right at the end of the book.
That's the fun part.
Yeah. And so I think one of my theories is that Jay's dad is Jack's dad.
Ooh.
And that's why that's why Jay said Jack is the most trustworthy and also the least trustworthy person.
Can we talk about Jack for a moment? Because everybody says not to be alone with Jack.
Yes.
And, like, even Jay, who I think at this point we can say Jay is a pretty good guy. And even Jay's like, don't be alone with him. And, like, why are you friends with someone that a girl should not be alone with?
Yes.
That's creepy.
Well, I mean, and there's that. Like, he's friends with him, but also not friends with him at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they found out they were related.
I want someone to outright say why you shouldn't be alone with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now it's heavily implied that Jack is a predator. And that's part of the reason that I think that Jack is a scapegoat for us, right? He's the red herring. We're supposed to really be focusing on him. But that also kind of calls into question the judgment of every other character that goes to Jack's parties, which includes Mia now, who
right.
I'm like, girl, why are you here? And that
whole scene, I was like, man, how have you not punched Mia before this? And she didn't even punch her at the party.
Should have punched her right.
She should have, and she should have punched her well before.
Yeah.
If she ever punches this girl, she should have punched her well before then.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jack, it may be a whole like other Jay thing where people say, "Oh, he's a predator, don't trust him."
Ooh.
But at the same time, maybe he's not. But they just feel that he is because of the certain comments he makes. Like he comments about Eliza being like
the water lily.
He makes all these advances towards her and talks about like how nice of an ass she has, but also he's not sober at all, and he hasn't been since Jay's disappearance.
Yeah,
and I think like maybe it is the drugs and the alcohol that come into play. Like maybe you shouldn't be alone, but also like he also makes these comments, but maybe he actually doesn't go through with that. Because I also feel he's hiding something. Maybe he's making all these comments to these girls because he's gay and can't come out as gay.
I don't know that I get the queer vibe from Jack.
I feel like if they're not related, if Jay and Jack are not half brothers or somehow related, I also get the feeling that Jack has a softness for Jay. Like, and he hasn't been sober since Jay's disappearance.
Yeah, specifically, somebody says he hasn't been sober since Halloween, and Jack is the one that's like, no, it was just after that, which lines up with Jay's disappearance.
Right, and I just feel that there's something there between them.
I think there's this point of, he was drawn to unexpected bursts of light, and so I wonder if there's just, like, this little quasar kidnapping people and moving them through time or something. And that's the light that he went into. I do also want to talk about some other things that get said at Jack's party. And it's this one thing about true crime, which brings me to the ethics of journalism. The quote was, all true crime media is exploitative, but if we can help the case, maybe help give his parents peace, it'll be worth it, right? ? And I think this
Yes.
is a really great talking point because it's like, where is the line between investigation and journalism and exploitation?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
later on, she has a moment where she chimes in that like, I'm literally being trained to be somebody who harasses a family like this. This is the degree that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through. And I think it's really important to note for this particular case that Eliza's podcast is not for her advantage. Right? We learn about the other podcasts and how everyone's like, wow, Jay was such an asshole, he was such a player, he was a boy slut, like, and everybody is saying all these awful things. They're making specific TikToks about it. They're doing like all these very specific hate podcasts, right? One of them's called like Karma's a Bitch, which is
Mm-hmm.
ultimately like, oh, you deserve to disappear because you're an awful person. But Eliza is actually looking for what happened. And I think even
Mm-hmm.
before she had the connection, I think she was genuinely interested in finding out what actually happened to him,
Yeah. But it's
especially
also
in comparison to these other people.
but it's also exploitative as well, because even though that this is for a class, she does say that after she gets graded on this class, she may make it public,
Mm,
because that would help her chances of getting some sort of job or scholarship, or something that she wants.
yeah.
It'll make a connection that she really desires, as long as she makes it public and it gets big and people kind of know her name, and she
Hmm.
can get looked at. And that's where the exploitative factor comes in, because it's
Yeah.
not just with she has good intentions, but she also has this underlying intention, which I think anyone who puts themselves out on YouTube or a podcast or anything like that
Like us.
has to, like us, has to have some sort of, I don't want to say like narcissism, but like they don't mind the attention. They're looking to get picked up or be viral, or have that even just a little bit of notoriety.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to trying to be an authority, right? Like one of the things she says in the first 10 chapters, and Jay agrees with her, is that she currently has something none of the other projects have, which is a connection to Jay, like a direct connection to Jay, not a I was
Mm-hmm.
friends with him or I sat next to him in class, but she's able to talk to him and figure things out and fill in these holes that cannot be filled in otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget where I was going with this. So like she's got this direct connection to Jay, and I think that makes her podcast a little better, right? Because now she's got an authority, and as you're saying, like that's what people that put out YouTubes and TikToks and podcasts, we want to be an authority on a subject, and we want to put our own 2 cents in, and we think that we are in some way, shape, or form more authoritative than others, and that's why our voice has to go out. And I agree with part of what you're saying, that it is ultimately exploitative, but I think the line for this particular situation is whether or not she chooses to go public with it. Because if she goes public with it, then it puts her name out there, and it is specifically for this advantage to be found to have a career. But if she keeps it private and it's only for
Mm-hmm.
this school assignment, I don't feel like it's exploitative. But I do feel like some of the things she does crosses the line, like going to his house to talk with his
Yes.
family, to make a connection to his cousin, to talk to her, and also stealing the mail because it's not her mail, and for her to have possession of it, it is theft and a federal crime, even in Canada, to mess with somebody's mail.
So
Oh.
I disagree on your first point with the
Mm,
crossing the line to his family, because yeah, that's what investigators do, right? Journalism majors. They want to get to the source. They want to ask questions. I think that what she did is fine, going knocking, hey, can we just speak? And even she was like this, she didn't have the intention of speaking
mm-hmm.
for the podcast. She just wanted to speak to his mom. But even if she did want to you know, put it on the podcast or maybe write a journal art, a newspaper article about it or anything like that. If you're just knocking on the door and say, hey, can we talk on record? And they say no, I think that's fine. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're not crossing a line. You're just asking a question. If she continued to go further, knocking even more, trying to get in their backyard, trying to, you know, ask their family and friends to ask questions, you know, to them, I think that's crossing a line. I think, you know, the paparazzi or people who just can't take no for an answer is crossing the line. But I think going to the house and saying, hey, can we talk? And them saying no. And she's like, well, shit. Okay.
I think that part is crossing the line because she is a student. That's the part that, like, she is not a professional. She is not represented with any legal team. She has no reason to really go there other than her personal interest. And that's the part that I think is over the line.
But also, she's going as a friend to Jay to check on his mom and talk to his mom. And if she is starting a podcast, whether it's for school or not, again, she's just trying to get information, and going up to someone's house and knocking on the door and just saying, hey, can we have this conversation? I think that's fair. I mean, that's like anyone coming up and saying, hey, can I sell you on this solar?
Yeah, and I think every last one of them is stepping over the line, and the line happens to be knocking on my door. How dare you? I do not want solar panels. Get away from me.
Yeah. For me, it's crossing the line when I say, hey, I have no interest in this. Like, I've thought about it before, and I do not want to pursue it at this time. And then they ask me questions. I'm just like, again, I'm not interested. Please leave.
This one guy came up trying to sell us stuff, and he was like, if you just go get your energy bill, we can go over that. And I was like, yeah, I have no idea where that is, and I'm not interested. And then I came back inside, and the guy stood outside for like another 20 minutes waiting for me to go get that. And then he finally left. And then he came back later that night, and I made a joke to my sister. I was like, what if it's the guy? And we looked through the window, and it was. And I opened up the door, and he's like, hey, did you find that energy bill yet? And I'm like, I said I wasn't interested. Like, dude.
Yeah. I know when we first bought this house, we had someone like come by to like take pictures and like get an estimate or appraisal for the mortgage company or something. I don't remember. But I remember napping. I was like napping, and the see-through curtains were kind of drawn a little bit. And like I kind of stirred, and I just saw some guy like outside of my window. And I'm just like, what? What the hell? And I guess he saw me stir and then went around to my door and knocked on it. And I'm like, so I went out there, and he's just like, oh, I'm just taking pictures for the mortgage company. If I have any questions, you know, I might knock on your door again and ask. I'm like, okay. Like, you could have knocked the first time.
I mean, at least, all right, I'll give you that. At least Eliza wasn't like staring into somebody's window and being like, hey, give me this. Yeah, in that sense, no. But taking
that's what I'm saying. I think what she did was fair. And that's why I said I disagreed with you on the first part, because the second part is like, definitely a federal crime.
And she's like, well, I won't open it. I'll ask Jay about it. I'm like, you shouldn't have it. Why do you have the mail?
But also,
I know,
that lady gave it to her. So it's not like she was going up to their mailbox and taking the mail from their mailbox. It was this lady was gathering the mail
but she was
claiming
Jay's mom. A much closer relationship than what she has in order to get the mail. That's the part.
True. She did not get the mail. It was not handed to her.
Taken it.
The lady was like, here, have this.
Her mail. Like,
I agree. I absolutely 100% agree. But it's not like she went looking for the mail and saying, hey, I see you have a bag of mail for Jay's mom. Can I have that?
Should not have that mail. There is also in this section, there is some more about Eliza and Jay. They're kind of like, you know, like they're getting closer. The romance is building. And there's this one line uh, after it's toward the beginning when she is letting Jay know that she's going to go to Jack's party, and Jack's like, "Ooh, no, don't go. I don't want you going there." And her reaction is, "I'm not supposed to like the fact that he's going all caveman possessive on me, but when was the last time a friend actually cared about what happens to me?" And I was like, ouch. Like, that, what an awful place for this character to sit in kind of constantly, about when was the last time a friend, when was the last time somebody cared about what happens to me? And I think it really says something about how our environments prime us for our relationships. You know, like, Elisa's very lucky that Jay is the one who walked through that door that Mia ultimately leaves open, because it could have easily been someone that was predatory, like Jack, to take advantage of that. Allegedly. And
allegedly,
this also is the first time that she feels cared for. That's depressing. We already know that Mia was a terrible friend, and we've seen that Mia is a terrible friend. But Elisa's 19, and this is the first time she is admittedly feeling like somebody cares for her. Ouch.
Again, she should have punched
at
Mia
that party
a long time
too.
ago.
So,
I hated that scene, and not because it wasn't written well; it was written very well. I hated Mia
wanted
in that moment.
Mia to like take a heel off and beat Mia with it. I wanted Elisa to do that.
You mean
is correct.
Elisa?
Instead of Mia taking off Mia's shoe and beat. Yeah. No, you know what? I want Mia to take off her own shoe and beat herself with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So also, that Elisa doesn't have to get her hands dirty.
Because I'm sure she looked fabulous in it. But so they find out that Mia is at this party, and Elisa's like, "Ew, gross, why are you here?" But she doesn't say that out loud. She's like, "Great, I'm going to have to take like a really big sip of this Mai Tai to handle whatever Mia is going to do." And she already knows that Mia's going to cause a scene. And she goes up anyway to be like, "Hey, nice to see you." And Mia's like, "Oh, well, you abandoned me." And she makes a whole bunch of other, they're not even passive aggressive. They are outright aggressive comments about what a weirdo Elisa is. Yes. Like, she just likes octopuses and true crime. What a weirdo, right? And everyone around her's like, and?
Yeah. They're having like a normal conversation, and all of a sudden Mia bursts out and goes, "She's so obsessed with me. Ha ha ha, weirdo." And it's like, is she? Because she's holding a normal conversation. You're the one who's saying all this random shit about her.
And nobody else chimes in on this. And Elisa is happy to see this. I was happy to see this. I really, 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 really wanted Elisa to punch Mia in the throat.
You can definitely tell Mia's like the last link. Like, she's on the very, very bottom of the totem pole. And it seems like they're only tolerating her because she's dating Taylor's brother. And Lance, I guess his name is Lance. And Lance doesn't even seem interested in her either. Like, he's at the party flirting with Tamara. And, like, you can see, like, someone say, "Oh, isn't that Lance over by Tamara?" Like, talking to Tamara. And Mia looks over, and, like, I think it was said, like, there's something that passes on her face.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why are you dating this guy if he has no interest in you? And clearly his sister has no interest in you either. And can we talk about Taylor for a quick second? Because, like, she literally acts like she hates Elisa. Like, Elisa is the scum on her shoe, you know, all this stuff. But then she comes to her defense a couple of times in that scene. And Elisa's like, why is she defending me? And it's just like, Yeah, what is with this girl? Like, do
I
you like her or do you not like
I
her?
think
Like,
what I get from Taylor is that, like, she might not like Eliza, but I think it's maybe she doesn't know Eliza, or she's only got stories from Mia about Eliza. And so she's like, okay, well, this
right.
girl's blah, 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 blah. And what she's seeing in this moment, and what she has probably seen a lot before, because we know from Eliza that Mia has absolutely no skills in hiding the mean girl act, is this awfulness. And it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like Taylor is also fed up with this awfulness because they're working on a project together themselves, right? The skincare YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine what that's like if Mia's got to be in charge of something? Like, she already tried to take over Eliza's
Yeah.
project when they were just doing the true crime series. I imagine she'd be an absolute nightmare, like she was here at this party.
Yeah, and maybe she's doing the same thing to Taylor
Mm-hmm.
that she was to Eliza, where, oh yeah, I'm so into skincare and makeup and all this stuff, and then like when Taylor leaves or is done with recording or whatever, she's like, yeah, Taylor's so
Yeah.
weird. She's so mean, to other people. I was just gonna say, and with Taylor, like maybe other people are more apt to
Mm-hmm.
report back to her, and Eliza had to figure it out on her
Yeah,
own.
that's exactly what I feel like is happening, because in the Mia Eliza friendship there wasn't other people, but here for Taylor and Mia there's a whole gaggle of people. So if Mia is going up and she's essentially talking I mean, that's going to get back to her. Like, I've been in friendships like that before, where everybody has nothing good to say about anybody else, and it's like, if this is what you say about these other people, what are you saying about me? And
Mm-hmm.
it does. It all comes
Yeah.
back to the, like, Mia lucked out in her friendship with Eliza, in that Eliza didn't go around to everybody else. And now I think she's getting a taste of her own
Mm-hmm.
medicine, and I hope that it continues, and I hope Eliza punches her in the face.
I've also been in friendships where uh maybe you like I liked someone like a friend or whatever, and then my
Mm-hmm.
other friends didn't. And so the more they talked about that one friend, the more
Yep.
they were poisoning my mind. And then it got to that point where that one friend that I used to like was just annoying to me, or I had an issue with them because everyone was, and I've
Yeah.
also had that happen to me as well. It wasn't like, uh, I've been, plenty of
Mm-hmm.
friendships that happen that way, especially when you're young, especially when you're younger.
I would
That
say
tends to
that
happen.
especially happened to me in, like, early college, because we all went different
Mm-hmm.
places, and we all grew in different ways, and then we came home and we kind of tried to put
Mm-hmm.
the puzzle pieces back together, but we'd all shifted just a little, and rather than trying to make our new shapes fit, we were just kind of like taking a hammer and jamming pieces down. And then it just like you said, there was one person that we were still friends with, but then other people had a problem with them, and instead of going to that person and saying, hey, listen, I have a problem with that behavior, they went to me. And so then everybody's problems
Mm-hmm.
became my problems with this person, because I couldn't go anywhere without hearing about them. And then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I had a huge fight with that friend. And
Yes.
I mean, it's I love stories that explore friendship in a realistic way. I read a lot of middle grade and young adult. Friendships are a huge part of that age category, and a lot of times there's like no
Mm-hmm.
conflict in them. And I really like
Yeah.
exploring conflict in friendships because it feels more realistic to the relationships that I have had versus these other things that are ultimately idealistic. And I want to say that I hope that Mia comes around and she's like, listen, I'm sorry for acting how I acted. But I don't want that to
Mm-hmm.
happen until Eliza punches her in the face. I can't.
You're gonna be stuck on this
It's the
punch me in the
punchline
face
of the
bit.
punch me in the
But
face bit. I can't stress this enough. I really hate her. And I think she's got a big lesson to learn.
and I think in this book, if it wraps up and Mia's like, "Hey, sorry, I'm a really shitty friend," I don't think it's
Yeah.
because she's actually sorry. I think it would be because she got caught or her other friends left her or whatever. So it just seems like Mia is that type of person where, and I've had these people in my life before, where they don't see anything wrong with what they did, but they need to be around people. So if their current friend group leaves them, they go back to their old friend group. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. But then they keep acting that way. So I think Mia is that character where she ain't gonna learn until she's older.
Yeah, she's very much the I'm sorry that you're offended kind of person.
Yes. Yes.
And they don't learn until you punch them in the
they'll...
face. I have not.
We need to talk to the author and tell her she needs to make a sequel where Elisa punches me in the face.
We did.
That's the whole plot.
We did.
Yeah, but now we got to tell her because now we've read that scene. And so, like, if there is no punch in the face, she needs to write a sequel where the whole plot is leading up to Elisa punching me in the face.
Dear Farah, here is the link for your interview, and please punch Mia in the face.
Please correct your book and republish it.
Must
with
be
a punch
punched
to Mia's
in the
face.
Pronto. Thank you. I haven't written fan fiction in years, but I'm going to write one where Elisa just punches Mia in the face. That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. Click that follow button to subscribe to the show, and don't forget to drop a review. Visit the link in the show notes to find us on socials and join our Discord community. When we hit 100 members, we're going to run our first giveaway right there on the server. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook. Whenever you share an episode, be sure to tag us at Booked All Night Pod and say hi to our guy in the sound booth. Join us next week to finish our discussion on Remember Me Tomorrow and our first season back at the mic. Until next time, my little Libernauts, this is Jessica Mary and Kay Leigh signing off and reminding you to stay booked all night.